Howdy, Jordan Chariton live. It is Wednesday, March the 18th, 2026, in the year of our Lord and Savior in the United Corporations of America. My co-pilot, JT Cestkowski, back from Chicago, where you were live. What were you, live for 3 hours last night?
3 hours in Chicago.
You know what really...
another 2.5 hour drive home in the snow.
You know what really pisses me off, JT?
What's that, Jordan? I feel like I could name so many things.
When you are live on the ground with the people from campaign election night and other channels that are in their studio, which nothing wrong with it, just kind of bloviating out of their behinds about the election, get a larger audience. It's not jealousy speaking. It's just like, we're there talking with the people, and unnamed individuals are getting a bigger audience. But what can you do? This is YouTube, and we live and die by the algorithm. I digress. Smash the like button, share this live stream. Let's get it out to as many people. Comment. So the more you like, share, comment, it helps boost it in the algorithm. We're definitely going to get to that election last night, which I would say, I think the national media tries to make every city or congressional or Senate race have national implications because it's better for clicks to make it national. But I do think some of the things that happened last night, particularly in the election you covered, which was the 9th district in Illinois with Kat Abughazaleh. Did I pronounce her last name right?
Abughazaleh is how she pronounces it in her
Abughazaleh.
videos. But it doesn't seem like she cares. She never corrects anyone.
I do think that does have some national takeaways, particularly if you thought Citizens United unleashed the hounds before this. Jesus. Now you got AIPAC creating, I think, 4 or 5 shell super PACs with no fingerprints to AIPAC, so you don't even know who is behind the super PACs, and trying to prop up, like, straight up, candidates they would hate normally, a Muslim candidate in specific in the 9th district, in order to pull from others. Frankly, this kind of practice, this kind of spending money on politics should be illegal, should be outlawed, but it's not, because we live in the United Corporations of America, and the Supreme Court, as well as our government, has been purchased. But we're going to get to all that because JT was there, so I definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you think, and by the way, what do you think is going to happen come midterms and 2028 if AIPAC is doing this now? Also, obviously, Trump's Epstein memorial war is still in full swing. I did steal that from Kyle Kalinske. That's what he's calling the Iran war. So obviously, there's plenty of outlets covering the Iran war. We're trying our best to cover it, but I want to keep the focus on Epstein, because I do think that's part of why Trump launched this war, which over 2 weeks in, we still have not gotten a clear actual reason for the war. So we're going to get into the latest with Epstein. But first, JT, we have breaking status coup news.
We do?
Yes.
News to me as well, Jordan?
As of a few hours. You're hitting the road.
Oh, that's right.
You're hitting the road.
Doing so much, I already forget.
We were live. We were in Chicago for 2 months. When I say we, JT and John were in. I should probably tell John about this too. That would probably be a good thing.
Surprise, John.
We were in Chicago for 2 months. Then we were in Minneapolis for 2 months. Not, just leisurely reporting, dodging less lethal ammunition, getting gassed by tear gas, among other things. I wouldn't say you've taken a break. You've still been avidly working, but now we're getting back on the road. And we thought, you know what? Trump, thus far, we have spent, the figures are all over the place. I'd say at least $15 billion in this war of choice. Well, we wanted to show you the other war, the war at home. That's the tentative name. Michelle didn't like it. She thought it was too strong. I don't agree. We want to show you the war at home here in America, which is the American people are treading water to stay housed, stay fed, stay warm, stay alive, as gas is through the roof, groceries are through the roof, Electric bills are through the roof. Healthcare is doubled after the Obamacare subsidies went down, and so many other things. And over the years, JT, as you know, well, you might not know, we've done these economic trips during the worst of COVID, during the worst of inflation. So JT is going to be hitting the road for us. We're thinking kind of start in the Midwest and see where we go from there. So we need you, the audience, watching now and to spread this. Our reporting is crowdsourced through you. We're going to be driving through the Midwest to speak with you, interview folks about your struggles as we spend billions and billions of dollars a day on killing schoolgirls in Iran, basically creating gasoline clouds and rain in Tehran, which you saw that when we bombed oil facilities and it rained. It was raining oil, which people are going to get cancer from. But we want to speak with the people because that's what Status Coup is about. So please, if you have a submission in the Midwest, loosely speaking, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, whatever's around the Midwest, email us, info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com, because JT and John want to interview you on the road to highlight the war at home, which is the economic Hunger Games going on as we spend God knows how much money in this feckless, illegal war. And by the way, we've done this for years and years during COVID, during the inflation trip. We start out going on the road covering economic pain, and then we find out about other stories like communities that have poisoned water, slumlords with people living in, basically living in black mold. So if you have other stories, not economic, but somewhere around the Midwest, we could kind of dovetail and go around. That's the beauty of independent media. We're not so rigid. So we want to kind of focus on the economy. People are struggling, but if you got a story in the Midwest, send it to us. Don't send us a novel because we don't have a big team to look at it, but the nuts and bolts of what your story is. And the beauty is we're not corporate media. So we want the actual living, breathing human element. If you're having to choose between groceries and medicine right now, if you might be close to losing your home because of how high prices are, if healthcare doubling at the end of last year has totally destroyed you in other areas, if your 401k or your life savings is dwindling because you're having to dip into savings to pay for healthcare or the electric bill or utilities or high interest rates. There's so many economic things that you never really see featured in cable news. Obviously, gas is up now, and we want to cover that too. But we are open to pretty much all of it. So please, we need you to do this trip. info@statuscoup.com. Send us your stories. And don't be shy. If you're not, you don't have to be a incredible speaker on camera. We'll pull it out of you. But email us. JT, it's your trip. So am I missing anything?
I just wanted you to repeat how people should be reaching out to us, saying that as many times as possible. And before you do, I just want to stress that, we can't do this kind of reporting without your help. If you think that there's some story near you that Status Coup should be featuring right now, reach out to us. I'm not omnipotent. So I need to know, I need you to tell me what's out there, what's happening around you that we should be covering right now. And as Jordan said, we're looking to kind of start in the Midwest here, but we're not necessarily averse to going further afield. So please reach out to us with any and all ideas.
And also, I should say, we need your stories. We also need your dough. We need your cash. We need to keep growing our paid membership to fund these reporting trips. I've already told you, just in Minneapolis, over the 2 months we were there, we spent over $30,000 to be there on the ground, showing you this fascist invasion. But just to do a normal trip like this with a reporter, a cameraman, the driving, the gas, hotels, food, it costs a couple $1,000s before you know it, just for 5 or 6 days. And that's staying at not the best hotels, eating fast food, etc. So there's pretty much no other outlets that do this consistently or do it at all. I think we're one of the unique outlets that actually gets on the ground in the trenches with the people, which is not always the stuff that goes viral, but it's extremely important to give a voice to working class people, to give the microphone back to the people. That's one of our slogans. So please statuscoup.com/join. We'll remind you a bit about this at the end of the stream. All right, let's get into Epstein. I want to start, Colin, I didn't do this in order, but I want to start with the Dan Goldman clip. So Dan Goldman is a congressman. I don't really think so highly of him. He's kind of a corporatist scumbag, if you ask me. With that said, and he's up against Brad Lander, who is a progressive in New York City, who's taking him on in Congress. But Dan Goldman, likes to jump in, get some photo ops from time to time. So he was on the congressional floor today, talking a little bit about something you've reported on, Roger Sollenberg has reported on, the woman who accused Donald Trump both of sexual assault and physical assault dating back to the 1980s. But he also revealed some things. He showed some documents, the redacted version of the Epstein files and then the unredacted version. It's kind of a long clip. We'll kind of stop and start, but I think it's pretty relevant because it shows that the Democrats, who I'm not rah-rah Democrats, but in this case, I'm with you. Let's go after Trump and anybody that was complicit in this. But it shows that the Democrats are, I think what Trump wanted with this Iran war was to take the media, take the Democrats' eye off of this. So they're keeping it in focus, including having officially subpoenaed Pam Bondi, the criminal attorney general who has perjured herself 7 ways to Sunday under oath. Let's start with Dan Goldman. We'll kind of stop and start.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to discuss this administration's massive cover-up of the Epstein files in order to conceal President Trump's involvement. This cover-up reached its apex last month when Attorney General Pam Bondi falsely testified under oath before the House Judiciary Committee. The Attorney General testified, quote, "There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that," unquote. This is a lie. In the 3 million or so documents that the DOJ has disclosed to Congress under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, there is credible evidence that Donald Trump committed a crime. And that, of course, excludes the nearly 3 million pages that the DOJ is refusing to turn over. Donald Trump is mentioned thousands of times in the Epstein files. There are multiple allegations that he sexually assaulted young girls. But I want to focus on one victim's allegations that the FBI unquestionably found to be credible. The DOJ tried to hide reports of 3 of the 4 interviews that this victim gave to the FBI, but pressure from the media and Congress forced them to disclose them. And now we know why. She credibly accuses Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her when she was between 13 and 15. In each of her interviews, this victim recited the same account of her interaction with Donald Trump. On August 7th, 2019, she explained that she was between 13 and 15 when she was left alone with Donald Trump, who, quote, mentioned something to the effect of, "Let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be." Trump unzipped his pants and put her head down, quote, down to his penis, bit the S out of it. Trump struck the victim and said words to the effect of, "Get this little B the hell out of here." The victim advised that she bit Trump's penis because he disgusted her. She provided some additional details in the next interview 2 weeks later.
I just want to stop for a second because so many things, over the last 10 years that are not normal and would once upon a time be like a scandal that went on for weeks or months. You have a congressman right now sitting on the congressional floor reading an accusation that the president of the United States essentially forced a girl to give him, oral sex, and then punched her in the face. Now, I don't really care. MAGA can say, hoax. Everything's a hoax. You and I have already gone through kind of the secondary reporting from the South Carolina Post-Courier that confirms not her accusation. Not that they knocked that down, but just they confirmed a lot of other things she claimed. Just kind of facts about her and like biographical facts, things like that. that she had claimed that were true. They didn't confirm or deny the accusation. But I just think it's a major thing that this accusation came out. The president's basically personal law firm, the Department of Justice, hid 3 out of the 4 interviews.
Yep.
And then when the media started picking it up that they hid them, all of a sudden on a Friday night bombs Iran and launches a war. And now you have a congressman on the floor reading. I mean, this is like Bill Clinton, Monica territory. This kind of language that normally this would be a huge scandal and all the news is talking about.
Yeah, it's fucking worse than Bill and Monica, right? I mean, at least in the case of Monica Lewinsky, she was an adult. Not that you want to excuse what Bill Clinton did either, but Jesus Christ. Like, yeah, you want like more news outlets to be screaming this from the fucking rooftops about what is happening here. There still has been a lot of corporate mainstream news coverage or news outlets that have not gone through and actually just reported the initial findings here from like Roger Sullenberger's reporting and some of the things that we've been talking about here on Status Coup as well. You did have, CNN, MSNBC, NPR, and the New York Times acknowledge it, and all of those are important, but you'd hope that even more outlets would start doing this follow-on reporting. It shouldn't be left to the Charleston Post-Courier to be, doing some of this like truly nationwide journalism that they were doing, because they had reporters on the ground in Washington in addition to following up what they could locally. But this should be a massive fucking story. But I guess are we just so desensitized to Trump? Is our media that bought and paid for? Or are we, are our attention spans that shot that just the war in Iran can pull us from something this, this major?
It's very, very crazy, but I will tell you, timing wise, the mainstream media was starting to pick this up. They were starting to confirm. Independent journalist Roger Sullenberger's reporting. You had interviewed Roger about this. It's a great interview, about 20 minutes or so. Definitely folks can check that out on our channel. We'll put the description under this in the description of this live stream. But I just wanted to stop for a second because this is crazy. This is scandalous. Not all of it might be true, but some key parts might be true, or all of it's true. But the fact that this has kind of come into the news and then gone out kind of is Donald Trump's magic power. It's his magic power to manipulate the media. It's its magic power to, say, hey, look. It's like a dog, look at the bone over there. Go over there. Let's continue.
Then a month later, she met again with the FBI and asked, quote, what the point would be of providing the information at this point in her life when there was a strong possibility nothing could be done about it. She didn't speak to the FBI again. But the FBI certainly found her story credible. In a 21-page PowerPoint presentation that the FBI made to prosecutors, they included this victim's testimony. They would not have done so if they did not find the evidence credible, which means that Attorney General Bondi lied when she stated under oath that there is no evidence that Donald Trump committed a crime. But we're just scratching the surface, because the Epstein files also reveal that Donald Trump has made false statements over the past quarter century about Jeffrey Epstein. We know in 2002 he called him a terrific guy and said, quote, it is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. In a birthday card 2003 that Donald Trump gave to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday, Donald wrote for himself that we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Enigmas never aged. Have you noticed that? A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. But in that same year, Palm Beach County opened an investigation into Epstein that eventually was turned over to the FBI. The investigation became public in 2006, and the Palm Beach County police chief received a call quickly after from Donald Trump, where Trump told him Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this. What innocent person calls the police chief about an investigation upon just learning about it? The recent documents also show that Jeffrey Epstein emailed Ghislaine Maxwell and said, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned." Trump also denied that he ever went on Epstein's plane. But of course, the Southern District of New York said that he was on his plane 8 times, often with young women. The reason why this matters is because we don't have half of the Epstein files. And if the Attorney General is covering this up in such a degree that she is redacting things from Congress, that she then, redacting things from the public that she then shows to Congress, what else is she covering up? And I would just show that this document here was redacted to the public, it was unredacted to Congress, and it completely disputes everything that Donald Trump has said about Jeffrey Epstein, about what he knew about the allegations, about his disgusting behavior, about whether he'd ever been to Epstein's house, saying, "I may have been there with my wife." Asked if any young girls were there. No. He may have had children of guests, but that's it. Well, we know that's not the case. Now, why is this important? Because if the Attorney General is covering up this information that she then reveals to Congress, what else is she covering up about Donald Trump's involvement in the Epstein files? I yield back.
So obviously that was a long clip, but I wanted to play the whole thing because particularly at the end, I will show this document that he was showing you. This kind of shows the before and after of what was originally redacted by the DOJ and then what came out after. So you see here, it's an email, spoke to Alan Garten, Trump's attorney. Garten arranged a 20-minute phone conference with Trump and Brad in lieu of Depo, and then everything else is redacted. But then when Congress people were allowed to go to the room for an hour or whatever it was to read the unredacted, think of that. A law passed that said they have to release all of it to us unredacted. They've blatantly broke the law for months now. There's no penalty, apparently, for breaking the law, particularly the DOJ or the Attorney General. But the specific thing, and I know it's a little grainy, but I'll read it to you. What they redacted here, spoke to Alan Garten, Trump's attorney. Jeffrey Epstein ever expelled from Mar-a-Lago? The attorney. Trump's attorney. No, he was not a member. May have been a guest, never asked to leave. Donald Trump and his little spokesperson, the Christian nationalist Caroline Leavitt, who walks around proudly with her cross, but in my view, dishonors Mr. Jesus. She keeps saying, she's like a robot, Donald Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago because he was a creep. Well, Donald Trump's lawyer disagrees and apparently told, I believe this was speaking with lawyers of Epstein, or I don't know who they were talking to actually, but Donald Trump's lawyer said, no, he was never a member and he was never asked to leave. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, especially because the White House has, I mean, as you just alluded to it, and by the way, I'm always going to refer to Jesus Christ as Mr. Jesus from now on. Thank you for that, Jordan. But
I say Jesus, but that's
okay. Yeah, right, of course. But the White House has really wanted to assert this narrative that, you know, Trump didn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein's conduct until 2003. And then even then they try to leave the year vague, but until 2003, when he's made aware explicitly by staff at Mar-a-Lago that Jeffrey Epstein is pressuring girls into giving him nude massages and pressuring them for sex, etc. And then as soon as he heard about that, then he kicked him out, and that was the end of their relationship. When, of course, we know from other reporting that that's not exactly true. They continued to have communication at least for another year after that, it seems, if not longer. So yeah, when you have Trump's own attorney here admitting that, yeah, he was never actually kicked out. Well, we still have the reporting from the Wall Street Journal that Trump was made aware of Jeffrey Epstein's conduct in 2003, at the very least, if he wasn't aware of it for, the decade plus that they had been friends before that, which I would find hard to believe that he wouldn't know for that entire extended period of time. But now here are actually admitting in writing, and it's no wonder that the Department of Justice has wanted to keep so much of this under wraps and redacted, and going so far as to do redactions that are actually outside of the scope of what the law passed by Congress allows. It was very narrow what Congress allowed redactions to be made. And here it's really just so clearly meant to be PR cover for the president.
And I will say, what else is underneath redactions? I mean, just that, which is kind of like not a smoking gun before and after, but it clearly shows why they were redacting it. It shows that was not like, an accidental redaction. They redacted it because it contradicts what Donald Trump has said for years. It proves Donald Trump has been lying. And if he's lying about why he cut communications with Epstein, then you have to pretty much assume he's lying about when he cut his relationship with Epstein, because there's things in the Epstein files alluding to Jeffrey Epstein in 2017 spending Thanksgiving with someone in the Trump family. I don't know if it was Trump, but there's an email where he's like, I'm down in Florida with Trump and a bunch of other people. Mm-hmm. There's emails where Epstein is talking about actively talking to the White House while Trump is president. So also, as far as we know, there are more, but right now we know that there's at least 3 million documents we don't have that they've just said, yeah, we're not giving it. Can I just say, yeah, I'm just gonna drive 100 miles an hour today? Yeah, who fuck the speed limit?
Good luck with that.
It's just crazy. I think, listen, there's a lot of conspiracies and a lot of theories about this, but it's very clear to me Donald Trump is betting on what has served him well his whole life, that the rules don't apply to him. He could get out of, he's got 1 million get out of jail free cards. But we already see many examples where they redact things that clearly there was a reason they were redacting it, and then they were shown to lie. I think the Democratic Party in general is a paper tiger. I don't really have any faith in the Democratic Party. With that said, an amateur ambulance chasing lawyer, if you watch Breaking Bad, like Saul, Better Call Saul, he could get Pam Bondi on perjury. Now, in my experience doing this for over a decade, most wealthy white people get off and don't go to jail for perjury or other things. No bankers have been put in jail for tanking our global economy. Oil executives have never been put in jail for poisoning our earth. ExxonMobil, all of them should be put in jail. The Sackler family has not been put in jail for killing hundreds of thousands of people with OxyContin. I could keep going down the list of people who have gotten out of jail, but she's clearly lied under oath, and now she's being subpoenaed. I also want to show the Deputy Attorney General is going on Stephen Miller's wife's podcast. Make that make sense? Make the fact that Stephen Miller's wife has a podcast. But anyway, he went on and he also lied. I mean, just brazenly lying. And this is the number 2 under Pam Bondi. Colin, let's play Todd Blanche, the Deputy AG, on Katie Miller's podcast.
As I've said, I'm the biggest conspiracy theorist you'll ever find. So when the Epstein story exploded, people online immediately connected it to the Pizzagate conspiracy theory about elite child trafficking rings. Did investigators check for any connection between Epstein and the Pizzagate controversy?
Well, when you say did investigators track the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, has been debunked repeatedly by law enforcement, not by me, by law enforcement. And I know that there's been a fair amount of searches around those certain terms.
Sure, it was totally debunked. And then you look at what happened with Epstein, where a wealthy, well-connected man was actually trafficking underage girls in elite circles. And then you begin to think, maybe things aren't a real conspiracy theory.
Well, but again, the only thing we can do in a conspiracy theory, Katie, is investigate. Okay, so it's easy to say on X or to say, I think there's an issue here, but how do we, let's investigate. So we investigated all the times that the certain buzzwords associated with Pizzagate were in the Epstein files, and you can do the same thing. And users
I've read all the pages.
And many of those, at least as far as my understanding is of the conspiracy theory, don't line up with the conspiracy theory at all. If all of them, frankly. But so I'm not sure. I am aware that the word pizza is in the Epstein files, among other things.
Does a client list exist?
Does an
Epstein client list exist, and is the government in possession of it?
No, I mean, listen, everything, I could ask you the same question, right? Because everything's been released. So there's what's commonly referred to as the client list.
You notice anything wrong there? Forget the pizza part, because everything's been released.
Yeah. When you're owned, well, I mean, we know we know specifically some of the documents that are being withheld. At least in the case of that credible Trump accuser, we know that the FBI notes on all of their conversations that they had with her are being withheld. We know those documents exist, and we know that that the Department of Justice has them and is not releasing them. So that on its face, like, we could just say, like, what about at least these 3, if not 4 documents that you're not releasing in this case, which represents dozens of pages right there. But then on top of that, yeah, we know that there are millions of pages that have not been released. So you're just going to act like, oh, it's all out there. Like, it's so transparent what we're doing. I could ask you the same question. You could go through the Epstein documents and tell for yourself that there's not a client list, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to say that there's not an Epstein client list, fine. Like, that's one thing. But also, like, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining by saying that, you know, the Epstein, that all of the Epstein files are out there when you yourself are claiming that you are withholding many documents that the vast majority of people would call part of the Epstein files. Jesus Christ.
I don't really understand. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand why none of these Democrats are trying to hold Pam Bondi and other Todd Blanche in contempt.
Right.
Like, if
the Democrats just recommended perjury charges against Kristi Noem, how are they not doing the same against Pam Bondi for some of the testimony that she has given in front of Congress?
If you or I are ordered to do something by a judge and we don't, you're held in contempt and thrown in a prison cell. If, you know, depending on the severity of a law, you break it, you go to jail. They've been in the violation of this law for months, and now they're saying they plan on just not following the law. Generally, in a nation of laws, which is supposedly what we are, even though we're not, well, we have, I've explained this before, we have 3 different justice systems: wealthy white people, middle class, or what's left of the middle class, and then black, brown, indigenous, disabled people. Anyway, it's just beyond the pale. The lies are just all over the place. And frankly, I'm not saying the media shouldn't be covering the Iran war. Whether it was launched as a distraction or not, you have to cover a war. We're killing, at this point, it's not just in Iran. People are dying in Lebanon. People have died in other areas, the global economic issues. But I think that they need to be able to, all of the media, not just corporate media, everyone needs to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, because this should not go away. They're hiding a lot, including, which JT and I have had healthy debate about, the so-called suicide, the Epstein suicide, which I interviewed Dr. Michael Baden about last week. JT and I did a live stream on that. He is the pretty well-known autopsy doctor, forensic pathologist. He didn't do Epstein's autopsy, but he was in the room observing it because Epstein's brother hired him to observe it. He has said from the beginning, I've done this for 50 years. I don't think this was a suicide. The breaks on his neck are more indicative of homicide or strangulation than a suicide. Why is that important? Jeffrey Epstein had we know, blackmail material on, who knows, dozens and dozens of rich people, financiers, politicians, celebrities. There's a long list of people with a motive to take him out, particularly at a time where there are reports Epstein's lawyers were kind of sort of starting to approach prosecutors about maybe sort of talking and maybe sort of Epstein naming names, so to speak. But for a long time, the media didn't really cover this. They just kind of took it on faith that he committed suicide, and most of the focus on Epstein, I think rightly so, JT, has been about the victims, these heinous crimes against young girls. But now the media and politicians are starting to talk about this a little more, including Ro Khanna, who's singing a bit of a different tune, because I interviewed him a couple months ago, or maybe 2 months ago. Didn't say much about the suicide, just kind of kept saying, well, we need to see the documents. Well, he's on another in another interview, he's now significantly doubting the suicide story. Let's play the Ro Khanna clip.
The more you learn, and I know you don't like to get into the conspiracies, you've read maybe more of these documents than anyone else. You're more informed on this than anyone else. Do you have a different feeling about whether or not Epstein killed himself after reading through more of the files, after seeing more of the extent that this administration, in the first administration, went to cover this up? Is that a feeling that you get more of?
I do. I mean, I don't have any definitive proof or evidence, but certainly I have more questions about why he died and whether he was killed and what happened, and that there needs to be an investigation there. There needs to be an investigation into what ties he had, if any, with intelligence agencies. The president of the United States should conduct a investigation, order an investigation into both of those with independent counsel, and then have a commission and report to the American public. Much like we've had reports about the Kennedy assassination or the King assassination, I don't think these questions are going away.
Again, I think it's fairly significant now. You have politicians openly saying, yeah, we need to have an investigation, an independent one, about whether he actually killed himself.
I know you and I have debated this, Jordan, about, was Epstein.
Can I also blow up your spot on something else?
Yeah, go
or
for
you
it.
get mad at me?
Yeah.
We're going to have a real group therapy session one day with JT Cestkowski, because not only does he believe Epstein killed himself, which, not going to hold it against him. I think he's 100% wrong, but that's either here. He also happens to think that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman against JFK. So you might say, how does JT, an intrepid reporter who's done such incredible work with Status Coup, be such a pea brain when it comes to obvious things like this? He'll have to speak for himself, but we're going to have a real debate, and we'll have to bring in the audience too about these two topics.
Chat, what I want you to know is that what Jordan is doing here is he's become very jealous of our relationship that you and I have cultivated over these last few months. He's not been able to be on the ground talking to you on the day in, day out basis that I have been able to, and now he feels the need to drive a wedge between us. Don't listen to his lies or his fabulations that he is coming up with here to
that's
try
not a lie. You
drive
did tell me that.
a wedge between us. While it is true that I think that the preponderance of evidence suggests that Jeffrey Epstein likely committed suicide, what have I said in the past, Jordan, is that I also, like Congressman Ro Khanna, believe that there should be an investigation, and I'm open to learning more, and I have questions, and at least believe that at the very bare minimum that Jeffrey Epstein's death investigation was handled improperly at baseline. And I'm holding open the door to other evidence to come in here. And I think that there should be an investigation. And that's what Ro gets to there, right? Is that he has this desire to actually, want to get to the truth of things. I think that's what we've seen that's been so commendable about Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie through all of this. The two who champion the legislation here is that they've actually been calling to try and get answers in all of this. And then I think I also, was kind of, you were referencing the interview that you had done with Ro Khanna a couple of months ago now, and the way that he had just kind of passed in that interview on ever really, you had set him up to talk about the Epstein's death, and he kind of just passed on it. My takeaway even at the time was like, how can you as a member of Congress who is pushing for more answers on Jeffrey Epstein then just kind of dismiss that there are still unanswered questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death? That doesn't seem like a morally consistent position or a logically consistent position. So I'm glad that he's actually coming around on it here. There do need to be investigations. That's how we get to the actual answers as to what has happened here. And I don't think that demand for answers should be as controversial as it has been to the Trump administration or to anybody who has been in a position of power with the ability to release a report on what is in these documents up until now. That would be like my main critique of the Democratic Party so far, is that, during Joe Biden's presidency, we did not get more information about these documents. I know that there are people in our audience who want to rush to Joe Biden or Merrick Garland's defense about what information could be released, but certainly there was, in these millions upon millions of pages, at least some information that could have been released over these last few years, and that has not happened. That has been a bipartisan cover-up of the truth here. And so it's nice to see some actual acknowledgement from Democrats now. Of course, it's politically advantageous for them to do so, but at least from Ro Khanna and others who are now coming forward and saying we do need to get real answers here and showing some real leadership on this issue.
And let's just call it what it is, folks. Listen, we always call it like it is. We're not team blue or team red. Obviously, we're going to focus on Trump and his fascism, but Democratic Party didn't give a damn about this under Joe Biden. They didn't. They also didn't care about it under Obama, because a lot of these things date back all the way to George W. Bush's presidency. So Democratic Party, there's a lot of corruption to go around. Frankly, there were high-profile Democrats that have been accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein, not just sexual, financial, among other things. So I'm not saying some of them now don't genuinely care. I think Ro Khanna actually does genuinely care and have sympathy for the victims. But there's also others that, frankly, it's not like this was a secret that there was a lot of smoke there. It wasn't a top priority for them. Biden, I'm not going to blame directly, because he was, he had to deal with COVID and a lot of other things. But, it wasn't just Joe Biden. It was Democratic Party could have made that a priority if they wanted to. Now, before we move on, reminder, I told you at the beginning of the show, we're hitting the road again. We're hoping this weekend. JT is going to be hitting the road with our cameraman, John, while we bomb and spend, at this point, about $15 billion killing innocent Iraqi school children, raining oil showers over the skies of Tehran. This war is unleashing havoc all around the Middle East. The ripple effects are happening all over the world with gas prices, among other things. We want to focus on the war at home, because a lot of people are struggling here and have been struggling for a long time. And what could those billions of dollars be going to here? So JT, John, they're going to be starting out in the Midwest, driving through guerrilla journalism style, talking to the people, interviewing you on your struggles, gas prices, high grocery bills, medicine, high healthcare bills, people possibly a couple paychecks or one missed paycheck away, getting evicted. People are rationing medicine. There's so many horrible economic stories that you don't hear about on the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is filled with fucking rich people. So we want to speak with you on the road. We've done this several times. We did an economic reporting trip during the worst of COVID through several states for a week. We did it during the worst of inflation through several states. But we get our stories through you. So if you're in the Midwest specifically, email us, info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com. We want to hear from you. What's your story? Even if you think it's small, reach out to us and we'll try to set it up logistically to stop on our way to interview you guys and gals about your struggles. This is why Status Coup exists, to give the microphone back to the people, to uplift your stories, to show the pain and the misery that don't go viral, because most people don't pay attention to it or focus on it. The other thing I'll mention, and this is why it's so important, why we need you, if you can. If you can't, that's okay. But if you can sign up, please, as a paying member to Status Coup, you could join us for as low as $5 a month. Statuscoup.com/join. Why this is important, we don't have anything set yet, but JT and I have also been discussing about us going to New Mexico to cover on the ground the Epstein story, because part of this story is the Zorro Ranch that Epstein had. And there's a whole lot of salacious and downright horrifying rumors about what happened at the Zorro Ranch, what happened to women, even, obviously rumors at this point, but women being killed and buried. There's been protests recently outside the Zorro Ranch. Now, New Mexico politicians have opened up a state investigation into this. So we are looking possibly to go there as well to interview folks that, I don't want to say have been involved, but are now what's going on in Zorro, because clearly the federal government's not going to investigate it. So we are now relying on New Mexico to investigate at least that part of the Epstein scandal. So we want to go there. If you're in New Mexico, by the way, and are involved, if you were just protesting outside of the Zorro Ranch, if you know about this story, you could email us too, because we're looking to set up interviews with folks down there too. So we're looking to do a lot of things here, but we need your help both for the stories, info@statuscoup.com, but to fund it as humbly as I could say it. And I'll take my glasses off so you can see my sleep-deprived eyes. Do you see many other outlets doing this kind of work on the ground? I don't. Do you see CNN doing a economic reporting trip through the heartland that isn't cut up into 15-second sound bites to say a whole lot about nothing? Do you see MS Now doing economic trips on the ground with the people, focusing on people's pain, economic, societal, spiritual? No. I don't even see a lot of independent media doing this. Why? Because they're lazy and it costs money. Well, we're not lazy, and we make it work through your funding. So please support us, statuscoup.com/join. Another reminder why, because JT was just on the ground last night. Good segue into our final story. You were on the ground in Chicago covering primary night in Illinois, specifically in the 9th district, where Kat Abughazaleh, how do I pronounce it?
Kat Abughazaleh.
Kat Abughazaleh, 26-year-old, she's been billed as like Gen Z or this and that, but she was a journalist before, worked for Media Matters, Mother Jones, pretty well known in progressive spaces on social media, kind of ran a out of nowhere campaign, I would say. I would say six to 9 months ago, she was barely known and barely polling in that district. Ran a very online focused campaign, live streams, videos. She was running in terms of the top candidate against Daniel Biss, who is the current mayor of Evanston, which is a large part of the district. A lot of progressives, because we're humans, look at it. She lost, so we're discouraged. But you and I were talking last night, JT. She lost by 4 points. AIPAC poured in millions of dollars specifically to defeat her. And she was a no-name as of 6 months ago in terms of the district, and still lost only by 4,000 votes to the mayor of a large part of the district. And I want to zero in on one part that I think is important. So while you were live, I was kind of pointing out, Colin, if we could show the New York Times results. But as I said, she lost by 4,447 votes. In a congressional race, that sounds like a lot. It's really not. That's not, that couple things shake different. She could have won. But if you go down to this candidate, where is she? Bushra Amiwala. She got 6,238 votes. She is a fellow progressive, a Muslim candidate who AIPAC very, very sinisterly, is that a word? Sinisterly? I think so.
Why not?
In a sinister manner, AIPAC using, by the way, shell packs. So they're just coming up with random names of packs that don't sound like AIPAC, just sound like random Americana, but they're actually AIPAC. And they spent a ton of money of positive ads for Bushra in order to basically split the progressive vote, to pull votes away from Kat. And obviously, we can't say all 6,238 votes are because of AIPAC ads. There's no way to even say that. But Kat lost by 4,400 votes. And Bushra got a big boost in that final week or two by positive ads run by AIPAC. And I could tell you, because I've covered a lot of local campaigns and presidential campaigns, a lot of people's only exposure to these campaigns or candidates is 15 to 30-second commercials.
Yep.
That's all they see. And that's a lot of what they based on. A lot of their vote is based on bullshit and propaganda and lies from TV ads. So at the end of the day here, I mean, if Bushra didn't get that AIPAC support, would that have helped Kat win? We can't say for certain, but it would have been a lot closer. I think we could say that. And the other thing is, JT, I'd love your thoughts because you covered it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the progressive movement needs to get its act together here.
Yes, that was the big point that I was going to make, was just when you look at the progressive movement is built on the idea of solidarity, right? That by people coming together and working together towards a common goal, that we can achieve so much more than through, just individualist pursuits and greed, right? So you would think that solidarity should be at the center of political movements as well. But it seems here that the progressive movement and a lot of these candidates on this list here are progressive, because this is a very safe blue district, Illinois 9, and Daniel Biss himself is going to be to the left of many members of Congress, which is probably just more of a sad reflection of the state of Congress right now. But the fact that these candidates couldn't come together to coalesce behind a single person, the way that it was able to happen in New York, where you had the cross endorsements between Zohran Mamdani and Brad Lander to make sure that, people in the now that was a ranked choice vote, so it was a little bit easier there, but at least where where people were ranking, Brad Lander first and then Zohran Mamdani second. So that way, when Brad Lander was eliminated from the ranked choice vote, those votes went to Zohran Mamdani, and they weren't, quote unquote, wasted votes that, could have potentially delivered that election to Andrew Cuomo, the centrist candidate in that election.
Don't call Andrew Cuomo a centrist. Go on.
the Republican in sheep's clothing. But that's the issue that we saw, not just in Illinois 9, by the way. That played out in Illinois House races all over the place last night. Now, I was most well versed in Illinois 9, but know that was a pattern, that what happened in Kat's race was something that repeated itself in race after race at the House level in and around the Chicago area last night. So yeah, I think the left has some real questions to ask itself and some real organizing to do in terms of like building some sort of political structure that can get these candidates to actually align themselves, because otherwise you're going to have the establishment endorsed candidates. In the case of Daniel Biss, he was endorsed by the longtime incumbent Jan Cestkowski in that district. Like, it's going to be the same establishment backed people that win in these races over and over again, unless there can be some actual acts of solidarity and selflessness among the candidates in these races.
And, I want to be clear, just to be fair, Bushra did denounce the AIPAC ads. So she wasn't willingly taking AIPAC support. With super PACs, you don't really control it. They could support you. They could run supportive ads or negative ads. All you could do is, say nothing and kind of tacitly accept it or denounce it. But the point is, I go back, this is going to be a sore spot for some people, to 2020. Frankly, for all you Elizabeth Warren lovers out there, and part of this is on Bernie Sanders, because I said at the time, I don't give a shit if you like Elizabeth Warren or not. I don't care if a lot of people thought she wasn't capital P Bernie progressive enough. But if Bernie calls her after the New Hampshire primary, where she should have dropped off after, I believe she came in third or fourth in New Hampshire, which is right next to Massachusetts. If Bernie just called her and said, I'm offering you the vice presidential spot right then and there, I think Warren, I could be wrong, but at least you have something to think about there to drop out. But no, she didn't. Then, in my view, she came up with that cockamamie bullshit that Bernie told her a woman can't be president, where CNN's source was just somebody. There was only two people in the room. Anyway, but if she drops out after New Hampshire, then Bernie does even better in Nevada, and Bernie won by a lot in Nevada. Still would have lost South Carolina, but Super Tuesday is what really hurt him, with Elizabeth Warren staying in there, because a lot of people, there was early voting. People voted for Warren because she hadn't dropped out. And then on Super Tuesday, Elizabeth Warren being in still pulled votes away from Bernie, and not only dropping out, but if she drops out and endorses Bernie. So, it's all kind of history at this point, but Bernie had a lot of momentum after winning Iowa. Yes, he won Iowa, contrary to Pete coming out and with no votes, no results, claiming he won. Then he won New Hampshire. The momentum after winning New Hampshire, coupled with Nevada, I mean, momentum's a big thing in presidential elections. So I think Bernie not asking, Warren for, in my view, kind of selfish reasons, staying in when she knew she had no shot. This to a lower level. I don't know this, Bushra. I'm sure she's a great person. It's not a knock on her. And it also goes with Kat. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. Kat's people last night said, they didn't want to deter people from running. That's what democracy is about. That's nice, but this is also politics. And sometimes you got to get kind of bare knuckles and be strategic, especially when you have these super PACs and then shell super PACs, because AIPAC now is creating shell super PACs with no fingerprints. You're up against massive, massive big money with, by the way, media also. Local media didn't do her any favors either. So it's up to the candidate also to try and, court the lower performing candidates to drop out and endorse you. But I think at the end of the day, this race in specific, there's a couple takeaways. Number one, people should look at it. Again, she's 26 years old, and most of the district had no idea who she was 6 months ago, and she only lost by 4,000 votes. And we just talked about she probably would have gotten more votes if not for AIPAC propping up this candidate. Also, from someone I trust in the district who was phone banking for her, this and that, one of the problems with AIPAC, a lot of these areas, think about Nina Turner in Cleveland when she lost twice. Other areas, Cori Bush losing this time, there are Jewish pockets of these communities, and they're very susceptible to those AIPAC ads. So if you are a candidate that's going to stand on conviction, be critical of the Israeli government, be critical of the genocide, I'm not telling you not to. Stick with your conviction. But you also have to find some type of message to try and get some of those Jewish voters. Zoran Mamdani did pretty well with Jewish voters in New York City. Now, New York City is different than, suburban Illinois. There might be wealthier Jewish areas that they don't want to hear it. You either stick with Israel 24/7 or you're anti-Semitic. But you have to have some type of a message, and that's a learning lesson, because a lot of times these candidates who end up winning lost first. So if she chooses to run again, this might be a good first stepping stone to get that name recognition to then win again. But I do want to point something out, JT. I was shocked as I was trying desperately to put my kid back to sleep at 6 o'clock this morning. Even Morning Joe, corporate media, is acknowledging that AIPAC essentially stole it from Kat Abughazaleh. Let's play that clip.
Whether you like her politics or not, I'm not endorsing candidates. Right. I'm just saying she is young and smart and gets the way the world of media now works. And it took AIPAC doing what you just said, Joe. I think she would probably won that primary over the Evanston mayor, Daniel Biss, who is also a very progressive candidate. He's not a moderate by any means. I think she probably would have won that primary if it hadn't been. She got it on the negative side coming from AIPAC, and then she got it, as you said, boosting the other kind of far left candidate in that race. But you're right. A couple of the big headlines out of this primary: turnout for Democrats again, off the charts.
I mean, that's a Morning Joe, and that's John Heilman, who's a pretty big Politico, so he's acknowledging. And there's other parts where they went into the numbers, what I just pointed out, the 5,000 votes, this and that. Mm-hmm. But I'd love your takeaways because you were there for her campaign event. Actually, let's play some of those clips from your live stream last night.
Sure.
I'm a volunteer. I've been spending many hours on the phone, knocking doors, poll greeting, doing whatever I can to help this campaign to get them to win.
What really attracted you to Kat's campaign? What made you want to spend that time and energy volunteering for her?
Yeah, well, to me, money in politics is the quintessential issue. It affects every other issue. I feel I can only trust a candidate who's beholden to the public, who takes public donations, no corporate campaign financing, no dark money, no super PACs, etc. So when I heard that Kat was running a campaign like that and she had some serious pull, yeah, I was interested. I was a Bernie delegate in 2020 back in Colorado when I lived there. And yeah, you know, that sort of was my kickoff into politics. But I got super pessimistic after that experience, and this sort of reinvigorated my hope and got me into it. So
you brought up your history with you know, being a delegate for Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Do you see Kat as an inheritor of that legacy? There's been a lot of discussion about, you know, what comes next after Bernie.
Yeah, so I definitely think she's in that wing of the party, you know, the progressives, the true progressives. That word I feel like is being co-opted even by some of those quote-unquote neoliberal establishment, liberal, whatever you want to call it, corporate Democrats of the party, right? But like I said, Kat's not taking that money, and that's the biggest difference between all these other candidates in the race. There's been millions of dollars from AIPAC, AI, crypto. They're all trying to influence the narrative here, trying to say Kat's an outsider. You know, I like that. I want a political outsider. I moved from out of town, you know. I grew up in a conservative household. Like, does that mean I shouldn't be allowed to run for office? And like people would just write me off for those reasons. Like, I totally get where people are coming from, wanting someone quote unquote rooted in the district, but like this seems like her time, so I'm for it.
Yeah, Kat was facing so much in terms of headwind. Like, there's the millions of dollars of AIPAC money that were dumped into this race, and tens of millions of dollars that were dumped into the state that we've talked a lot about here. But I mean, then, yeah, she's an unknown quantity, as you kind of made allusions to, Jordan, that she had just arrived. The moniker that really seemed to, that she wasn't really able to shake was this idea of being a carpetbagger, all because she had just recently moved to the Chicago area, as if like that was somehow a disqualifier in being an effective representative, which I think is a little, you know, a little ridiculous on its face, that you can't, you know, be an effective representative just because you've moved recently. And also, you know, you talked about just a minute ago, Jordan, about the way that those AIPAC ads, I mean, they work, right? I mean, they work on some people, and some people's, yeah, the only information they get about their local race is from those ads that play on their TV. I mean, shit, I came from local news right before this, right? And our whole business model revolved around there being a hell of a lot of people in this world that only get their information from some of those advertisements, because the media rates that local TV stations can charge go up during election time, and they make bank during that time from running those ads like the ones that were being played by AIPAC. And that was also something that came up in those interviews that I did last night, was that from some of these volunteers that there's a large Jewish population in that district. And when they would knock on some doors, you know, they would run into people who had just, you know, bought hook, line, and sinker all of these AIPAC lies and misleading statements that the super PAC had put out against Kat, and they're constantly swimming, you know, against the current there to try and make that progress. And yet she comes within just 4,000 votes here. And it seems like you're about to start talking about, you know, the way that the lessons that AIPAC was taking out of this race. That was something we talked about quite a bit last night as well, because that race, one of the reasons that we were highlighting it here at Status Coup is because of the national implications, not only because of Kat's candidacy and that left populism that she had embraced, but also because of the tactics that AIPAC was using, because this was really a proving ground for how effective AIPAC was going to be in this new version of the Democratic Party, where so much of the base is now rejecting AIPAC and the Israeli Zionist project, and the way that it is, you know, conducting itself in the Middle East right now. And the new tactic that we really saw play out in Illinois 9th was boosting Bushra's candidacy, because by stepping in and backing another leftist, they're trying to split the left vote. That is not something that AIPAC has really done at scale before this. They've usually just come in and backed their candidate with positive ads, or, you know, run negative ads about the candidate that they don't want to win. But here they did that, extra kind of 3D chess move of backing another leftist as a way to split the vote. And that's the thing that's really concerning to me coming out of this when I look at other races around the country that are going to play out across the rest of this year, as so many progressive challengers are really mounting interesting campaigns right now, is if I'm AIPAC, I'm going to take the lessons from Illinois 9 and repeat them in race after race. I'm going to try and I'm imagining it's past filing deadlines for a lot of these races, but for somewhere it's not, like even just try and like lift up a leftist or paint another candidate as a leftist, even if they're not, just to split that progressive vote wherever you can.
Right. And the reason I showed that specifically, Colin, if you could scroll a little bit, just in the 9th district, which you covered last night, AIPAC spent $7 million.
Mm-hmm.
Politico said some of it aimed at attacking Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss, who his mother is actually Israeli.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a pretty safe bet. Most of their money was spent on going after Kat. I think they kind of hedged their bets, like a lot of these rich people. I'll give money to Democrats. I'll give money to Republicans. So whoever wins, I'll get goodies out of it. That's kind of how a lot of donors play it. They kind of split their bets. But
yeah, I've actually seen breakdowns, Jordan, of how this money was spent. And the vast majority was actually spent, kind of going by their old playbook of like boosting Laura Fine, their preferred candidate. And then, some was spent against Biss and some was spent against Kat. But when you combine it in the totality of how all of the other Illinois House races played out, and it was a really mixed result for AIPAC last night. When you take a look at the totality, it really seems like the traditional way of spending money didn't necessarily work out for them a whole lot. And that's why I think that this new tactic of attempting to split the progressive vote going forward is likely going to be what they employ in other states, especially primaries where there are many Democratic candidates like we saw in Illinois 9th.
Yeah. And I also think, speaking with somebody I know there, Kat, not surprisingly, did very well with young people, which I think was part of her campaign strategy. Doing live streams, a lot of video stuff, a lot of social media posting, and young people traditionally come out less than older folks, particularly the baby boomers. But if we start getting young people in larger numbers out, coupled with starting to pick off some of those more normie Democrats that are starting to turn a little bit more to the left. I think under Trump 2.0, a lot of these establishment kind of normie Democrats who have voted for the Obamas and the Hillarys and the Bidens because they're fed a steady diet of, well, they're the electable ones and they're pragmatic and these people are too far left, which is always just corporate media propaganda. It's bullshit. Honestly, the far left and how the media fed you for years that Bernie was radical. In Europe, Bernie is considered a centrist in Europe. Most of the things that Bernie and, quote, far left people propose are mainstays of life in most of the rest of the world. I mean, I'm not a political strategist, but, I covered the 2016 campaign. I covered the 2020 campaign. There were a few nights I was in the hotel bar talking to some Bernie staffers. I'm like, can you get in his ear? Can you tell them they're radical? Tell Hillary she's the radical one saying we can't have universal health care and we need to bankrupt people to afford health care. That's considered radical in the rest of the world. Flip it on them. Unfortunately, they didn't take my free campaign advice. But we'll see. But I would say, listen, I think a lot of progressives and a lot of people that first got into politics through Bernie 2016, I hate to say it because I am not an incrementalist. I don't believe in incremental change. I think we could make big, drastic change relatively quick. There's just a lot of systems and obstacles and corruption put in place to keep it gradual and incremental and give us crumbs. With that said, I think the progressive movement wrongly, because Bernie's the talk of political revolution, and we thought, we could topple this corrupt country in just one cycle. And we could, get a real progressive in the White House in just one cycle. And on the congressional end, we could really start getting capital P progressives in there in just, one decade. But the reality is it takes time because there's a lot the most consistent voter. And I'm not attacking older people. A lot of people in our audience are older. There's a lot of older progressives. But by the data, the dominant audience to CNN, MS Now, the dominant subscriber base to the New York Times, Washington Post, what's left of the Washington Post because they're all fleeing, happen to be older people. And those folks for a long time have been fed a steady diet of, rah, vote for the centrist Dem, the pragmatic electable ones that tell you, well, theoretically, I'd like universal health care, but, we just can't do it because, well, we don't have a real reason. Or the candidate who says, no, we need to save our sacred choice between private health care and public government health care and bullshit. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, like I just said, has most of these things, not just health care, paid sick leave, generous maternity leave for women after they give birth. Actual, if you get injured on the job, not begging for relief from the government to heal up. But essentially, I think you need to take from this, when there's a loss, look at the small things. Again, a no-name 6 months ago through a strong campaign, barely lost. It really isn't a big loss. 4,000 votes in a congressional race. That could be turned around very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, from my experience covering the Nina Turner congressional race, she lost because of AIPAC. There were billboards all over Cleveland with Nina Turner saying voting for Joe Biden is like eating a bowl of or choosing between Trump and Biden is like eating a bowl of shit. They were running nonstop ads. So there were no actual ads about the issues, how Cleveland had extremely high child poverty, no actual issues. It was just Nina Turner. She's a bad Democrat. Nina Turner, how dare her say, I believe Palestinians should have rights. Anti-Semitic. She lost by 4,000 votes. Mm-hmm. So this stuff matters. All right. Colin, I have to go take care of the kiddies, but JT's going to finish. Yep. I believe we have other clips showing JT's great reporting last night, which I know he is going to encourage folks to support his on-the-ground reporting by becoming Status Coup members. Hint, hint. So let's play some more of his clips. And reminder, we're going to be hitting the road again, JT specifically, this weekend for our next reporting trip, focusing on your struggles in this Hunger Games, this new Gilded Age economy where you could barely afford groceries, medicine, gas is now almost $4 national average. So we want to talk to you. Specifically if you're in the Midwest, that's where we're going to start driving through. Email us if you have a story, info@statuscoup.com. You could take it from here, JT.
Yep. Enjoy the kids, Jordan. Have fun with the family. And yeah, Colin, let's just jump right into the next clip. I want to talk more about the reporting trip coming up, but go ahead and just cue up the next clip that we had from my on-the-ground reporting last night, and I'll start to break down some more of these takeaways that we got from Kat's race.
Kat is one of my best friends, actually. We met around the time we both moved to Chicago, and I've been involved with on and off the campaign since its very inception. I was at the announcement party. I was at her first stump speech, actually introduced her for her first stump speech. So I've been a diehard friend and supporter for Kat this entire time.
All right, you're the guy I want to talk to.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
so
absolutely.
there's some of the hurdles that Kat has faced, and how has she tried to overcome them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest hurdles that she faced was people not taking her seriously. I think that's for a myriad of reasons. She's young, she's a woman, she happens to be a journalist, but on the internet, so therefore she's not considered a journalist, right? Yeah. Pretty ridiculous. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles she's had to face. And then I think every step of the way, the establishment of the Democratic Party, I think, has been pushing to put their own establishment person in there. So she's been at a constant uphill battle. On top of the fact she's taking no corporate PAC money, all grassroots funding for the campaign. And then, of course, I think probably the biggest hurdle that she's had to deal with is her own huge beating heart, because it's that huge heart that put her in the front of ICE, that has put her in there to protect her community. It's the reason reason why she's been attacked and assaulted by ICE so many times. It's the reason why she's been there protecting our community who are being kidnapped by ICE. And it's the reason why she's being wrongfully indicted by the federal government. I would describe Kat's leadership style as servant leadership, right? She's a leader that leads through service. I think you can see that through the mutual aid resources that the campaign has been doing since its very inception. And then I think that also goes to the way she has lended her platform, her prominence towards protecting those that have been assaulted by and kidnapped with ICE. I absolutely think that every single politician that is sitting should be standing up and physically putting themselves in between ICE agents and their community. I mean, you have a certain level of protection, and even if you didn't, that's what we're supposed to do. I mean, that is the golden rule. You're supposed to take care of each other. We're supposed to be a community. And like any bully, enough of us stand up with one another, enough of us with enough prominence and power, they're not going to be able to harm all of us. So yes, I think that everyone in this race should have been doing more. I think that it's a shame that, you know, a journalist born in Texas has done more to protect the people of this community than the mayor who's running against her. I think it's an absolute travesty.
You saw there in the lower left-hand portion of the screen, like that was before the race was called last night, but it was looking pretty certain about the direction that things were headed, that Kat was going to lose, because we were already at 87.7% of the vote reported there. She was still down by several points, narrowing the gap, but not fast enough. And what you heard there, that optimism from people there in the room, that's not typical for an election party like this. So I've been a journalist for years now. I've reported on many elections. I've been at many watch parties like this. Let me tell you, normally when your candidate is losing, that room, the energy turns sour real fast. That never happened at Kat's event. There were some, tears like right at the very end, but even as the vote's not looking good for Kat, the energy in the room stayed up. Like, people were still talking about Kat's political future. And what I heard from most people is that they feel pretty confident that Kat at least has expressed that she's not going to run again after this race, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, what I would say is never say never. And the energy from people in that room, I mean, it really seemed like Kat had really captured them, because they were all urging her to pursue more yet in this race. And I think that speaks to a level of inspiration in her candidacy that, is going to serve her well in the long term, with regardless of whatever comes next for Kat, right? She's clearly demonstrated an ability to inspire action among many people here. I mean, she was new to the district. She had just moved into the Chicago area. So, I mean, who's to say what she can accomplish after she's been able to put down some roots there and been able to fend off then some of those attacks against her, once those don't have as much salience about her being a transplant and all these things. What is she able to achieve after that? We shall see. Or maybe she just gets into organizing. Maybe she goes back into media. Regardless, whatever she does next, I mean, I think she's going to be a real powerful force here. She's 26 years old. She's got her whole life ahead of her. Like, keep an eye on Kat. She's going to do some incredible things. But there were many criticisms of her campaign that came up in those interviews that I did. And you heard that gentleman making allusions to some of those headwinds that she faced, including like from the establishment wing of the Democratic Party. But I want to turn this on its head a little bit. Sure, the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, really got behind other candidates, not Kat, in this race, or just ignored this race, wholesale. But what about the flip side? There is a progressive wing of this party. And when a race is decided by 4,000 votes, and Kat came within 3.5 points of Daniel Biss, once an election is that close, any reason that you can come up with for why the outcome was the way it was is a legitimate reason that the outcome was that way. Any factor, could sway a few thousand votes. In a big primary like this, I mean, that's everything. It's nothing for a congressional, something that has the population of a congressional district. Like, you can overcome 4,000 votes. So last night we heard people blaming the AIPAC spending. I think that is the biggest reason by far. So for what I'm about to say, don't get it twisted. I do think that is the biggest factor that was at play here, was that unlimited outside spending that was made possible by Citizens United. That's number one. But we also heard people talk about many other factors that night. There was even one person who brought up the weather because it was very cold that day in Chicago. And that person's point was, look, Kat's base was the youth vote, and younger people are, usually much less likely to vote and a little more easily dissuaded from voting. So maybe the weather even played a factor in Kat's loss last night. But the one that I want to call out is the fact, we talked earlier about how the left was not coalescing around a single candidate. There wasn't that show of solidarity among a single candidate here to be able to take on the establishment and AIPAC candidates that were in this race. Where was Bernie Sanders? He never endorsed in this race. Where was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? She never endorsed in this race. These are two massive progressive voices in this country that have power, that could have had, some kind of sway over this race. Would it have been enough? I can't say for sure, but again, it was a razor close margin of victory for Daniel Biss, and maybe an endorsement. And some people in that room even told me they thought that, if Bernie Sanders or if AOC made an endorsement, if they endorsed Kat, then that's game over, that for Biss, that Kat wins that race. So there's other places to look to here for the solidarity that we need to see on the political left in this country in order to win more of these races. And then, of course, I don't want to let Kat off the hook here as well. She ran an atypical campaign. I think that there were, both strengths and weaknesses to that came out in the wash, but other people will have different assessments there. And maybe Kat herself would do things differently in retrospect for future campaigns as well. But I actually want to hear from Kat herself and what she had to say about her race. This was her concession speech, Colin, if you want to pull that up, where, she spoke, there was clearly emotion in her voice. It was an emotional moment. She had just spent months of her life running for this office, expended so much energy. You could feel the emotion in the room. There were people crying as she was speaking. Colin, why don't you play what Kat had to say?
But we didn't win, and it really fucking sucks. We came really close, and it sucks. But something that no one in power even expected would be possible at all. I need to stress to every single person in this room that this does not mean that the last year has been for nothing. Tens of thousands of people powered this campaign, knocking doors, making calls, donating what they could. We fed and clothed thousands of people across the 9th District. We forced our opponents to the left and to be more aggressive against this administration. We did all of this together from the ground up with everything against us. Thank you for being involved. And the work isn't over. There are progressives all over the country who are taking a chance just like we did, and we have to help them win. No matter how hard it is, we have to send a message to this administration, anyone who enables it, and I'm talking directly to them right now. You and your jobs are not safe. This is the start and not the end. We are not tolerating the status quo. You cannot kidnap and kill us and our neighbors. You cannot start illegal wars. You cannot trample on our rights and see our lives as a means for profit. We will continue to come back, and every single loss like this one just makes the path easier for the next person who takes the same chance. We are not done, and I am not going anywhere. When I said I would spend every single waking moment of the rest of my life to hold this administration accountable, win or lose, I fucking meant it. And I know all of you do too. So thank you for supporting us. I'm sorry that this sucks, but fuck Trump, fuck ICE, free Palestine, and I love you all.
Her story certainly doesn't end there. I mean, she's already talking about the future, right? About supporting other progressive candidates. That's that act of solidarity that you would expect to see among left candidates in this country, right? That's the theme that Jordan and I have been talking about here across this stream. And that was her message, first and foremost, was this is what the work is ahead. We have to support other progressive candidates across this country. So I don't think that this will be the last that we are hearing from Kat, even in this particular cycle. And I also want to say here that I'm losing my train of thought, of course, but everything that came out of this race for Kat is not a story that is over and done with, right? Something that we've barely touched on here is that she is facing federal charges for protesting outside of the Broadview, Illinois ICE detention facility. That's the public black site that exists in the Chicagoland area that ICE was using during Operation Midway Blitz, basing many of its operations out of that building. It still is, by the way, it's still being used as a place to disappear people even right now as we are speaking. Kat really demonstrated leadership that she wanted leaders to take to the streets. That was something that we heard from the other protesters who were out at the Broadview facility and elsewhere in Chicago. They wanted to see their leaders on the front lines. Kat tried to lead by example in that way and ended up being charged by the federal government for some of her alleged actions out at the Broadview, Illinois ICE detention facility. Will those charges go away now that she's out of the race? Remains to be seen. There was another Democrat who was charged, another Democratic candidate who was charged alongside of Kat, whose charges were then dropped after that person dropped out of the race that she was in. So maybe the same thing happens with Kat, and that these charges were, as they seem to be on their face, politically motivated, then they'll go away. But also maybe the federal government tries to make an example out of Kat going forward. These are the things that we'll continue to watch here at Status Coup, because we stay with these stories. We stay on the ground doing this important journalism. You notice that when we went to Chicago, we were there for 2 months on the ground. And then I still go back on election night. I drive 2.5 hours down there from where I live in Wisconsin to cover this race. Late into the night, I did not get home until 2 a.m, driving through snow in order to get back to my house, because I wanted to cover that race that night because of the connections it had to the previous reporting that we had done, and the connections it will have to the reporting that we're going to do on more progressive races in the future. And I've got a bunch of plans to be able to do that here in the near future, by the way. So if you're not, please get subscribed so you can see us document how more populist, left, progressive candidates in this country are running their races, and the way that they are making a lot of renewed noise in this new era of an ascendant left in this country right now, as people are demanding better leadership from the Democratic Party in this moment. If you're already subscribed, please go to statuscoup.com/join for as low as $5 a month. You go to keep us on the ground doing this important work. It's work that I love to do, but I can't do it without our financial support. And as awkward as it sometimes is for me to make these pitches to you guys for financial support, notice what I'm glad that I only have to do this, and that I don't have to, toss to commercials where some corporation, where Raytheon or Big Pharma is going to be hawking products to you or trying to sell you on a capitalist dystopian nightmare future society through consumerism. I don't have to rely on that here at Status Coup, because we're only reliant on you, our members. And also, we're not doing the right-wing grifter thing of like selling you supplements or gold products or some sort of like survivalist kits. Like, all I'm doing is saying, hey, we're doing really good journalism, aren't we? If you think so, maybe we're worth a couple of bucks to be able to keep doing it. And if that is a message that resonates with you, if you think that what we do here at Status Coup is important, the best way you can support us is by going to statuscoup.com/join for as low as $5 a month. You go to keep us editorially independent. There. Jordan, I have paid the bills here. Hopefully, if you all could make me look good and go to statuscoup.com/join, that would go a long way towards making me look good to my boss and also helping us go back on the road, because we are going back on the road. Colin, if you would throw up that graphic that you worked so hard on for 30 seconds, this War at Home tour that we are tentatively calling it, where, yes, we're going to be going on the road here in just a few days. I am in the process of putting together our plan where we are going to be going around the country and reporting on, as our country is spending billions upon billions of dollars on the war in Iran, where could that money be going here domestically to actually help people rather than killing people in a foreign country? How could it be going to actually saving people here in the United States? That is what we are going on the road to find out. And you see that email address there on the screen, info@statuscoup.com. If you send an email to that email address, I will see it. I will see it personally. info@statuscoup.com. I want you to send us story tips. I'm going to start by putting an emphasis on traveling around the Midwest, but then we might branch out further depending on, what stories we're all able to cover. And I'm working on quite a few exciting ones right now. So please, if there's a story that you think I should be covering, or you think that you would make for a good interview subject, to highlight, some of the financial difficulties that people in this country are feeling right now. And I know I'm feeling them. Jesus Christ, when I filled up my tank in Chicago last night on my way home, holy shit, the price of gas and the price of oil is absolutely ballooned underneath this president who has promised to get prices under control. But if you think you would make a good interview subject, please write to me, info@statuscoup.com, so that way I can try and follow up on these stories. Or maybe there's just something happening nearby you that you think like, hey, this is like a really good, there's not enough mainstream press attention on this, and there should be. That's the kind of stuff that we love to cover here at Status Coup, the things that we do that corporate media does not do and should be doing in this country, offering that kind of on-the-ground perspective and dogged accountability journalism. We will go and do it. Send me those story ideas. I really need it. I'm seeing somebody who wrote in the chat, JT in his pajamas, his street clothes are battle tested. These are not my pajamas. These are I'm actually in my snow shoveling gear here because we got hit with a blizzard here in the Midwest. As soon as I'm done talking to you here, I have to go out and continue shoveling out my driveway. I don't own a snowblower. It's a whole thing. Don't ask. But I have to do it by hand. So I have to go out. I shoveled out. We got hit with a blizzard. I shoveled out one path through my driveway, just enough to be able to get my car out, to be able to go and report on Kat's, campaign last night, and then came back. We got more snow overnight, and I have to go back out and shovel. And then in between shoveling sessions tonight, until that is done, I will also be sending emails setting up this reporting trip for us going on the road. So, a lot that we are doing here at Status Coup, both professionally and personally. Colin, I think this is a great time to be able to read super chats and subscribers if you want to throw them up here on the screen. All right, so we've got Bonnie's K. Ridge, who became a YouTube member. Thank you, Bonnie's. We appreciate that. Dwilks 888 became a YouTube member. Welcome aboard. We really appreciate having you. We have oh my God, I am so sorry. Les Yakraznikova, 2896, became a YouTube member. Thank you for making that difficult for me to pronounce. I really appreciate it. We have Beta Virus 11, who gave us $5, says, watching the fall of capitalism. Thanks for all your hard work at Status Coup. Free Palestine. The fall of capitalism is not going to happen quickly or quietly. I think that's something that we're all living through right now as we're watching this late stage capitalism play out here in the United States in the way that it is victimizing millions upon millions, if not billions of people all over this world on its way out through this new gilded age that we are living through. And it's something that we're going to continue to document here at Status Coup, and your $5 goes to making that possible. 5 p.m. somewhere became a YouTube member. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and maybe that is maybe something that I should be taking to heart here when I'm on these, when I have these streams. I kind of forget that Status Coup is a bit more casual in that way. Fly Chomper Fly, it gave us $2 and says politicians' psyches don't normally lend to coalition. Yeah, you're talking about the left coalition building that I was talking about here on the stream quite a bit. And yeah, when you're talking about, I think you always have to have a little bit of an ego to think that you merit, running for Congress or running for any position of power in this country. You always have to have that little bit of ego that makes you think that you can do it better than anybody else. And who am I to talk? Because I'm somebody who gets behind a microphone and think that everybody wants to hear what I have to say about, whatever topic I'm talking about. So it's clearly some ego going on here too. But yeah, that is like part of human nature that works against it. But that is why, the progressive vision for this country is about fighting that selfish urge. And if you're going to espouse those belief systems, I would think that you should be applying that to your own campaign and electoralism. And then Fly Chomper Fly also gave us another $1.99 for a super sticker. We really appreciate that, Fly. Thank you so much. And then another 99 cents. Oh my God, you were making it rain here at Status Coup. We really appreciate that support. So Colin, it seems like that is everyone. Did I miss anything? I'm going to assume that since you're not putting anything else up on the screen, that means that I got it all. Thank you all for being with us here for our stream today. Get subscribed if you are not, because we do these streams sporadically here. We try and get into a rhythm and do these fairly frequently. So if you liked hearing from us tonight, you're going to love seeing us when we go on the road and actually do the boots on the ground journalism that we do in so many places across this country. So please get subscribed if you are not. So for now, from my office here in Wisconsin, on behalf of us, all of us at Status Coup, thank you so much for being with us. Stay safe and good night.